2020 was a pretty interesting election in terms of how far people used a crisis to push voting laws and voting allowances. And now a lot of Republican states are starting to try and roll those back as much as possible. We've seen changes to absentee voting being passed in places like Georgia and Florida, and many other states are looking at them. And no state is a bigger Republican state, at least in my mind, than Texas. And in Texas, you had a lot of people trying to take advantage of the 2020 pandemic situation to modify voting practices and voting laws in such a way that the Texas legislature, or at least the Republicans on it, are not necessarily comfortable with. So with that, they've been trying to go ahead and roll those back, but they've ran into some trouble on it. Let's talk about what's going on. I'm Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. I'm a lawyer. I'm also a legal and political commentator on YouTube and on Odyssey. Wherever you're watching, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and make sure your notifications are turned on so you don't miss any videos. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of how it started versus how it's going here. So the background of this is, like I said, a lot of different states, particularly Republican states, are looking at revamping and revising their election laws in the wake of 2020. Many people determined that during 2020, some various parties in specific states, looking at you, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Texas, others, tried to take advantage of the pandemic and open up voting beyond what the state legislatures allowed. In places like Georgia and Pennsylvania in specific, we had the state election board working along with state judges to expand the amount of time that was allowed to vote. Down in Georgia, we had this done through a settlement agreement that was then enforced in kind of a weird way, which again allowed the expanded amount of time to accept absentee ballots to go beyond Election Day, even when they couldn't really verify when those ballots were sent. And this caused some people to have lots of concerns about voting integrity and all of that stuff. And you guys are familiar, right? Especially if you've been following this channel, you're familiar with lots of people's arguments and issues with the 2020 election and with their assertions that they did not receive a fair shake, that the voting was not controlled properly, and that people who were not supposed to vote. That's the allegation that has been going on specifically since 2020. Now, as an important disclaimer, for the purposes of YouTube, obviously, we need to go ahead and say that Joe Biden is the inaugurated president, and that was determined by all of the election experts on Earth. However, no matter how much determination can be done, there are still people with lots of questions, and it's really telling to show that Republican legislatures across the country are, they're taking that expert opinion and they are deciding that they need to go ahead and have some tighter controls on their own elections. And that is what the Constitution of the United States says. It says that the state legislatures shall control the time, place, and manner of their election process. They will go ahead and make the laws surrounding federal elections at the state legislature level. And this was, of course, the source of a whole bunch of the legal complaints, which said, wait a minute. This was done through county election boards, or this was done through the judicial branches of the states, where the Supreme Court is just saying, yeah, go ahead, add on a couple days, who cares? And the legislatures are saying, hold on now, that's not the law. That's not the law we passed. That's not the law that's on the books. So this has been the friction. Well, like I said, getting back to it, down in Texas, they are working on this. They've got a bill amendment. I think it's Senate Bill 7, which is supposed to address some of these issues. And over the weekend, we had this happen. This is how it started, right? Texas Democrats leave the House floor, effectively blocking passage of restricting voting bill for now. So Texas Republicans are pushing to enact a slew of new voting restrictions. This is from CNN Politics. You can read the slant all over it. Of course, trying to go ahead and control how your elections happen, that is now oppressing the black vote, according to all of the media. And it's such a consistent narrative. It's almost feels like it was coming from one place and distributed to all the different media outlets, and none of them have any original opinion on the matter, but they have a very particular branded opinion on the matter. But that's just me. It's just how it kind of seems to me. You guys can make up your own mind on that one. It just looks a little contrived when all of them are saying this is the new Jim Crow. Oh, and Joe Biden is also saying this is the new Jim Crow, because apparently none of these people have either lived through or read what happened in the old Jim Crow. This is the new Jim Crow, where not being able to mail in your brother's, sister's, boyfriend's, uncle's ballot is somehow suppressing your ability to vote. That's what's going on. But so they just walked out. The Democrats walked out of the state House floor late Sunday night, leaving majority Republicans without the quorum they needed to approve the bill in the final hours before a midnight deadline. Their move effectively killed Senate Bill 7 for this year's legislative session, but it could soon be revived. Republican Governor Greg Abbott tweeted Sunday night that he is adding election integrity to a list of topics lawmakers will address in a special session he plans to call. So how it started, lots of cheers, fighting against the man and the machine. Let's see how it's going. Texas governor vows to defund the state legislature after Democrats blocked voting restrictions bill. Okay, you want to leave? You don't get paid. You don't get paid. Can a governor do this? Yes. Yes, they can. And it's kind of funny. Let's talk about how. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, a Republican, threatened to veto funding for the state legislature Monday after Democrats blocked a controversial voting restrictions bill brought by the GOP. Abbott had said he would sign the bill into law, but State House Democrats prevented it from passing by walking out late Sunday night and denying the chamber a quorum ahead of a midnight deadline. The state constitution allows Abbott to veto certain items in bills. This is called a line item veto. And this is what the state governors across the nation have in many states. They have a line item veto where they can go through a budget bill and just and take certain things off, giving them the power to remove the funding for the legislature in the state budget. Now, lots of people have actually asked for line item vetoes at the federal level, and those have been rejected. They're not in the Constitution. It's not allowed for Congress to even grant one. It would have to be a constitutional amendment at the federal level, and this is part of the reason why. It interferes with the separation of powers. But at state levels, states wrote their own constitutions, and some states have allowed for a line item veto. My state of Minnesota has it as well. And our governor actually did this in reverse. He did it to Republicans. Guess what? I thought it was hilarious then. As well, especially because the Republicans of Minnesota bent over backwards to give the governor, Mark Dayton at the time, to give him everything he wanted, and then he still got rid of their pay. It was the ultimate troll move, and I support Abbott doing it here as well. But look at how it's being spun in just a second. He says, I will veto Article 10 of the budget passed by the legislature. Article 10 funds the legislative branch. No pay for those who abandon their responsibilities. Stay tuned, Abbott tweeted on Monday. Defunding the legislature is unlikely to have that much of an effect on state lawmakers who earn only $7,200 per year when not in session and $38,140 when in session. Texas really only has a session every 2 years outside of special sessions. They pass laws every other year. And then in the off years, they don't. And this is thought to sort of streamline and make their legislative sessions more efficient. I don't know if it does, but they also don't pay their legislators as much, and that's what I support. So they're going to take away. They're going to take away $45,000 though. That's you can say what you want. You can say what you want about that not being their primary incomes, and that's probably true. But no one wants to lose $45,000. That I'm aware of. meaning most legislatures hold outside employment when not in session. However, it will affect legislative staff who are paid through the legislative branch. Here we go. Punishing working class office staff, maintenance, and other support services because he didn't get every single one of his demands is very on brand for Texas Republicans. Good. Sorry for the controversial take, but good. No, you want to mess around. This is voting. This is not something Greg Abbott does all of the time or threatens all of the time. This is the vote. And there are a bunch of shenanigans that were going on in Texas and elsewhere to try and expand the vote to places the Texas legislature doesn't want it to go. And while the mainstream media interprets that as to black people, bafflingly, the reality is they don't want it to go to people who can't vote. And there's a whole lot of them in Texas. There are a whole lot of people who are not eligible to vote, and the state legislature has the power to determine how they go ahead and police that action. They tried to do it, and the Democrats pulled this move. They pulled a gimmick to avoid voting on the bill and try and get it into next session. And now they're mad that Governor Abbott's going to pull a gimmick to get him back in. Sorry, that's some Schadenfreude for you. You're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to deal with it. So that's what I got, guys. Why don't you drop a comment down below? Let me know what you think. Should Greg Abbott or any governor be able to veto the pay of Congress? I find it funny. I find it very, very funny, but not everybody does. So I'd love to know your thoughts on it. And until next time, peace. Peace.